I knew the moment Jordan Ellis strode into the conference room that the ground had shifted under my feet. He wore sleek Italian leather shoes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, and a watch that gleamed under the fluorescent lights like it was trying to prove something. Fresh off a fintech startup that had imploded after barely 6 months, he had been hired as our new treasurer at Crestwood Manufacturing, a mid-sized industrial supplier based outside Columbus, Ohio. I'd spent 19 years here, starting as a junior analyst when the company still ran payroll on creaky servers that hummed like old refrigerators. The all-hands meetings started innocently enough. Jordan stood at the front, tablet in hand, flashing a confident grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Team, we're entering a new era," he announced, his voice carrying that startup bravado. "Legacy systems? They're holding us back. Dual custody approvals with physical tokens? Adorable. Really?" He held up my security token, the one I'd guarded like a family heirloom since the 2014 rollout after a near-fraud incident. "Emily still relies on this relic for high-value approvals." "Charming. But we're modernizing today." Every head in the virtual room turned toward me on the screen. Not with pity or solidarity, but with that awkward corporate silence, the kind where people avert their eyes because they sense blood in the water but don't want to get splashed. My chest tightened, but I kept my face neutral, the way you learn to after years of navigating office politics. I had built those protocols myself, layer by layer. After watching vendors get stuck in customs due to delayed wires and seeing a former colleague nearly fired over a compliance slip. It wasn't flashy code. It was reliable, battle-tested safeguards requiring secondary physical token confirmation for anything over $8 million. Jordan tapped his tablet theatrically. "Access revoked. Real-time compliance wins." The screen flickered briefly on my end, confirming the digital lockout. No drama. No confrontation. I simply minimized the window, locked my workstation, and slid the token into my desk drawer. Humiliation doesn't always explode outward. Sometimes it lodges in your throat like a stone, heavy and cold, forcing you to swallow it down while nodding through the rest of the presentation. Buzzwords like streamlined dashboards, AI-driven forecasting, and frictionless workflows that sounded impressive but meant little to someone who'd pulled all-nighters rerouting payments during supply chain snarls. As the meeting wrapped, Jordan flashed a wink on camera. "Emily, stick around if you have questions about the new interface." I stood, pushed in my chair, and left without a word. Back at my desk, the weight settled deeper. 19 years. I'd seen CEOs come and go, survived layoffs, and designed the very system they now dismissed as outdated. But silence had always been my armor. They mistook it for irrelevance. By late afternoon, I signed my HR exit paperwork. No termination, just streamlining, a polite way of saying my role was no longer essential infrastructure. The HR rep recited from a script, her voice flat. I didn't argue. Instead, I wiped down my desk meticulously, the same care I'd given to reconciling accounts for nearly 2 decades. The token came with me, not out of malice, but because protocol demanded proper deactivation through the bank's designated channel. Without that, the circuit remained live. Driving home through the suburban streets of Westerville, the late summer sun cast long shadows across the lawns. My little ranch-style house felt like a sanctuary. I kicked off my heels, heated some leftover chili, and sat in the sunroom with iced tea, watching cardinals flit around the feeder. The quiet after endings isn't always grief. Sometimes it's clarity, like finally closing a spreadsheet full of circular errors. I pulled out the black folder from the cabinet behind the printer, unlabeled, filled with every policy update, banking agreement, and contingency clause I'd collected since 2014. There it was on page 2, Custodial authority cannot be reassigned without formal deactivation of the original token via the designated banking portal and written acknowledgement from the primary holder. Highlighted. Initialed by me and our old banking liaison, Greg, who had retired 3 years ago with a knowing smile. This clause will save your ass one day. Emily. They had flipped an internal switch, but the bank's records still listed me as the verified custodian for high-value transfers. Until paperwork closed the loop, nothing over $8 million could move. I didn't smile bitterly. I felt tired of being underestimated by people who believed charisma trumped caution. Monday loomed with a $15 million wire scheduled to a critical supplier in Texas for raw materials. The disbursement calendar I'd built before Jordan's ink dried predicted it perfectly. The system wouldn't scream errors, it would simply pause, waiting for the handshake that never came. That night, I activated my old silent backend alert, a passive notification I'd set years ago for month-end reconciliations. It would ping my phone if high-value wires stalled beyond 60 seconds without secondary token verification. No sirens, just a quiet ledger note. I went to bed early, the token resting on my nightstand like a forgotten talisman. The marble in my throat eased slightly. They thought they'd unplugged me. But some circuits don't die so easily. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp Ohio air that promised fall. I refilled my coffee, watching squirrels chase each other around the bird feeder in my backyard. The first alert hit at 8:42 a.m., not dramatic. Just a soft buzz. Authorization protocol paused. Awaiting legacy token verification. 15 million outbound to the Texas supplier. The screen on their end would show a polite hold. Pending secondary approval. No rejection. Just stillness. I sipped my coffee. No grin. No gloating. This wasn't revenge. It was the architecture I designed after a 2013 scare where lax approvals nearly cost us a major contract. The system waited quietly for the right key. Back at Crestwood, they tried again. Same transfer. Same flag. By 10 o'clock, 3 more wires stacked up, smaller ones at 4 and 6 million. But 2 urgent amendments. One vendor in Houston had crews already dispatched, another cargo shipment idled at the port in Galveston. I imagined the treasury floor. Keyboards clacking faster. Slack threads lighting up. Someone posted in the urgent channel, "Anyone have eyes on Emily's backup approver? Who holds secondary token access now?" Reply, "Thought she left with it." Did we get formal sign-off? Radio silence followed. Jordan probably paced his office, clicking frantically, trying overrides that the system, built above certain thresholds, simply wouldn't allow without the physical handshake. No admin bypass for compliance reasons. The CFO remained unaware initially, buried in board prep. But around 11, a treasury analyst must have entered his office with a pale face and printed logs. I've been on both sides. When you explain a system is working exactly as designed but you're not authorized anymore. Question stop and call start. My phone rang at 11:47 from an unknown number. Voicemail preview. "Hey, Emily. Quick question about the dual custody setup for large disbursements." Always just a question, laced with urgency. I let it ring. By early afternoon, 10 transfers totaled over 47 million, all blinking the same message. Engineers poked at queues, submitting feudal change requests for temporary failover. They didn't grasp that this lock wasn't code you could rewrite on the fly. It was buried in banking agreements. Jordan's startup sheen cracked. No more jokes about paperclip rituals. Just short messages. Then longer explanations. Then silence. A logistics contact forwarded whispers. A steel shipment missed its window, triggering vendor memos with material breach clauses. Fingers pointed inward. By 2:45, the CFO called a situation review, code for crisis. Jordan entered with printouts of the queue. He blamed the old process. The room went brittle quiet. Then the bank called their compliance officer, a woman I'd shared coffee with during audits. Why weren't we informed of the authority transition? Internal access changes don't override our records. The original token holder remains primary unless formally revoked in writing. Panic rippled. The system hadn't failed. It enforced rules they ignored. Legal joined without finance looped in, always the sign of seriousness. They requested docs on recent changes. Legacy transitions. My 2014 registration. Amendments through 2022 all confirmed my role with veto power absent notarized consent. A 2019 update clause. Override rights persist until formal transfer via prior holder signature. I wasn't there, but the silence spoke volumes. They'd revoked my login but not the authority. My empty desk. The token at home beside my crossword. The record still listed me as gatekeeper. Not a ghost, but the last confirmed authority. The compliance call at 5:30 Eastern pulled everyone in. The CFO. Tie loosened. Antacids probably nearby. Treasury group dialed from the conference room. Faces strained. Legal silent on camera. The bank officer delivered the summary calmly. Failed transfers. Authority mismatch. Was the original signatory notified in writing of termination? The CFO admitted no. Then, per agreements, Emily Harper remains sole verified custodian. Transfers above threshold stay pending. No drama. Just a door slamming shut. Vendors pulled contracts. Storage fees accrued. Board caught wind by Tuesday. A director asked why dual authorities weren't retained. Assumptions aren't policy. Internal audit launched. My name surfaced repeatedly in docs. Legacy architect. Verified signatory. They mapped flows from scratch, realizing the outdated system outlasted their haste. Emails shifted tone, from handled to desperate. A text from unknown. Quick chat about protocols? Later from ex-colleague. Walk us through fixes informally? No such thing as informal with these rules. I attached my contingency transition doc, drafted in 2021. Transfer contingent on mutual agreement. Indemnification for disruption. Acknowledgement of violation. $1 release fee. No body text. Subject. Legacy Custodial Transition Protocol. They signed within 30 minutes. Countersigned by board. I acknowledged the transfer via offsite tool. The token blinked green once. Vaults opened. Wires cleared. Red flags vanished. No tantrums. Just precision. The treasurer's keynote on efficiency stayed half-written. Board call lasted 11 minutes. Ending his run quietly. Funds resumed. But damage lingered. Vendor alerts. Lost confidence. Contract reviews. Com spun it as seamless hybrid return. My inbox stirred with a logistics firm offer. Design unbreakable systems. I replied simply, happy to talk. Rule 1. Respect the gatekeeper. That night, I archived the token. They never saw past the badge. Dismissing experience for buzzwords. The system remembered who built it first. Trust isn't automated, it's earned through the people who hold the keys. When we erase institutional memory without closing circuits properly, we invite the very failures we fear. What price do we pay for underestimating the quiet architects who keep the machine running? The silence after their panic lingers. A reminder that some powers aren't revoked with a click.